And we're on. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Big 12 Mafia show. I'm glad to have you here. It's going to be pretty interesting what we're talking about today. All things UConn. Do they deserve an invite to the Big 12? And if they do, what are they going to do with it? And how do we measure success? That's what we're going to cover today. We really appreciate everybody being here. A few couple reminders. The QR code up in the upper right-hand corner, scan that with your phone. Go to KuConnect and become an NIL subscriber. Give us $10 and, start building up this program for BYU. We've wanted to be big time for years. This is our chance. We got to show up and show out. So please subscribe and become a member. You can do it as cheap as $10, as cheap as LDS people normally are. Today, we've got Mike Solomon with us, who's I'll just let you introduce yourself, Mike. Tell us who you are and what you're representing today.
Sure. So first of all, thanks. I appreciate it. We have a lot more in common, Nathan, than I think most people realize. I mean, BYU and Connecticut have been kind of fighting the same battles for a long time. And so, I'm thrilled to be here. I would love to be your competitor one day, and we're hopeful that we can get to that point,
Right.
First of all, I'm Mike Solomon. I moved to Dallas, Texas, of all places. And I decided to take on the SSN at UConn, at Sidelines account, just to stay close to the program.
Yeah, Sideline Sports, right?
Sideline Sports, yeah. So, yeah, I do it really for fun, to stay close to the program. I make no money from it. It's just a passion and a joy. And, 100 years ago, I was sports editor of the Daily Campus. I've loved UConn my whole life from being a young kid. We were season ticket holders to everything. So I just loved the school, much like you love Brigham Young. It's like, injected in your blood and DNA. And I have a whole family that is, although they didn't go to, my sons didn't go to UConn for odd reasons. They're diehards too.
So sell us UConn. Why UConn? Why now? Why the Big 12? And where do you guys want to be? We've got thousands of questions on Twitter, and people are interested. They want to know a high energy reason why they should consider UConn as an equal.
Yeah. So let me just say, first of all, I'm still on a Houston High.
Oh,
We went into the Final Four, won the national championship in basketball. Can you hear me?
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
You zoned out there for a second. Keep going.
Yeah, so still on a Houston High. I haven't come down. Yesterday in men's basketball, we got a terrific portal recruit, Cam Spencer from the Big 12. So things are just really at an all-time terrific level for the University of Connecticut. But I'm going to step outside my role. I'm usually more of a moderator and showing both sides to this whole realignment. I love the Big East. I love the concept that we can save our football program and survive long term. So I usually play that more moderating role. But I'm at a point now, I think, where I can make the case that we should be indeed in the Big 12. I mean, let me put it this way. I believe we're a championship school in high-profile sports. We're 5 times men's basketball titleists. We are 11 times women's basketball. We do it in women's sports as well. We've been field hockey champs. We have a top 10 baseball team. We have a top 15 men's hockey team. We do lacrosse, some which are Big 12 schools, Big 12 sports, some of which aren't. The point is, we know how to win, and we win regularly, and we're very, very competitive. I'd say that we are at P5 levels in everything. We are the number 2 men's basketball budget nationally, behind only Duke. If we went into the Big 12, we'd be number 1. Kansas would be number 12. We spend money on sports. We do it on a regular basis. If we joined the Big 12, we would be number 1 in U.S. News World Report academic rating within the Big 12. Number 1 in the Wall Street Journal academic rating. We'd be number 2 in 8-year graduate levels. We'd be number one in core academic spending. We'd be number four in annual research. We bring a large perspective. We're a P5 university. We're ready for this.
The real question, let me interrupt you there, Mike,
Sure.
for just a second. The one thing that we're all hanging on is what Mr. Monkey put in a simple question that I put on the screen. My question is, how invested in football is UConn? That's the only thing. I think everybody appreciates where UConn is for academics and for everything they do, top level. Everybody agrees, basketball, everything. But football is what's driving realignment right now. Football is what's driving the money. Tell us why. Sell the UConn football program right now.
Sure. So I would say this, that we have an elite coach in Jim Mora. They have made a huge commitment. This is going to be his last job. He's already stated that. He said he's not looking to go anywhere else, and if he had great success, he wouldn't go anywhere else. The man is an NFL coach, got to the NFL championship. He's been a top 10 college coach at UCLA. He's been an elite guy. That's number one. He's changed the culture. Our facilities are absolutely elite. They're NFL level. The one thing we hear from recruits over and over again is, I had no idea. There's nothing like this on the G5 level, and it's really elite P5 kind of stuff. So we have terrific facilities. We treat the team at every level, from the training table to travel, like a P5 level organization. The one thing we don't have right now is an elite stadium, but my guess is that if this goes through, we will get state commitment to upgrade that stadium.
And I posed that question on Twitter and we got some emotional answers, didn't we?
We did.
People are definitely lively and involved on the stadium and the commitment level. I think there's been other schools that have joined conferences that have had to meet certain criteria within a certain number of years. That would be stadium size. That would be, a new basketball arena, stuff like this. And you're saying that you believe UConn would meet that criteria, and they could do that with the additional funding they'd get.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the money will come, and I think the governor's involved, to be honest with you. I know the Board of Trustees, I know the University of Connecticut leadership is completely committed to it. I believe the legislature will be too. If they're not, I don't think the school will do it.
Right.
But I do believe that that's all going to happen. Yeah.
So the next comment here from Sergeant Pickles, he says, no disrespect to UConn, but can they justify commanding a full share on their hoop success alone? In other words, would they come in, would they potentially take the move for a half share?
I don't know. That's a good question. And I'm being transparent about that. But I would say this, it's not just on hoops alone. It's also the New York metro market that we bring. Right. Half of Connecticut is Fairfield County, very one of the richest counties in the United States, if not the richest.
Right.
Okay. That's in the New York metro market. I do believe there is no footprint in the New York metro market for a great college football team. And so if we can become competitive mid-level Big 12 in a couple of years, I think that captures a lot of the New York enthusiasm. I have to believe that that's what Yormark's looking at. He's looking at not necessarily the football team today, although we're 6-6. I think he's looking for us to get better. I think we become a crown jewel because of that footprint to the Big 12. And that opens up the recruiting, a pretty fertile Northeast recruiting for the Big 12.
Right.
Not just UConn, but for the entire Big 12.
I agree with everything you're saying. And I think, to be honest, my opinion is the money is an afterthought at this point. I think what we're looking at and what people are realizing, and Bob Thompson told us this last August, is that money is one thing, but it's really about exposure, right? And that exposure drives everything. It drives donations to the school. It drives academics by how many people want to go to the school. It drives revenue for all of the sports and everybody that does extracurriculars. It is the single point of contact for the school is everything media. The exposure is what matters. So
Yeah.
it is UConn ready to make that jump, knowing that there might be some sacrifices to get there?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, we have a terrific ADs from Auburn and Arizona or Arizona State. He knows big time football. I think, yes, I think the commitment is going to be there. I don't think we'd be in this particular situation if it wasn't. But I also think that we're forgetting how big the New York market is and what it can do to drive recruiting interest for other Big 12 schools as well.
Right. I agree with you. I think that's right.
I think there's a lot of kids believe it or not, out of the Northeast, particularly Connecticut, with a lot of its pretty elite prep schools. Those kinds of kids are going to Michigan. They're going to Ohio State.
Right.
There's no reason why they can't go to Brigham Young or Texas Tech or Kansas for football, or Connecticut for that matter. I think the opportunity is there. We've just never had, the Northeast, just not had another school other than Penn State to really capture the imagination of the region. Certainly Rutgers hasn't. Syracuse hasn't. Boston College hasn't. And honestly, I think that's the fault of the ACC.
Yeah.
For not leveraging what it had in the greater Northeast and the greater New York market.
They've been riding the coattails of Florida State and Clemson since they were founded. I mean, you got to be honest about that.
Yeah, and they're a Tobacco Road driven organization. I think Yormark, if he comes into the New York market, is going to leverage it in really high profile ways. And he's certainly looking to do that with, the sponsorship of the Rucker City basketball games. I think he sees a national conference. UConn is a piece of that.
Right. 100% agree. And in fact, I see a path that could actually open up fairly quickly. And you tell me what you think about this. I see CU moving. Friday, I think it's done. But that's my opinion. I have no, I'm not an insider or anything. Mm-hmm. If that happens, and Arizona is able to steal and pull itself away from ASU, that leaves, and nobody else wants to come. They want to stay in Oregon and Washington don't have an outlet at that point. Big doesn't invite them. They stay together. The path I see is San Diego State and UConn coming in. And
really?
I could see that happen. Now, San Diego State has sold out for the Pac-12. I mean, honestly, I have tried for months and months to convince San Diego State fans to even consider the Big 12. And I understand why they haven't done it, because their dream, just like BYU's was the Pac-12, right? But nowadays, they have shown San Diego State no respect. So it's not out of reasonable intent that I believe by June 30th, if Colorado and UA go, I could see San Diego State and UConn coming in. What do you think about that?
Wow, I hadn't really thought about San Diego State. I thought it might be Utah, but I was confused as to how big a market Utah is, and splitting it between Utah and Brigham Young, would it be worth it?
Yeah, I would rather have Utah, to be honest, but I don't think Utah would come under those circumstances.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know enough about San Diego State. I watched them in Houston. We had a great game against
them.
Yeah,
that was a fantastic game, by the way.
It was terrific, and they were tough. I mean, I don't think we played our very, very best in Houston, and they hung in there and made it. I sweated a little bit, but it's interesting because you end up with San Diego State and Connecticut. I mean, it's about as and then UCF and
West Virginia.
Yeah.
And you're all over.
Brigham Young, you're all over the place.
Right, but the reach. This is Yormark's vision, right? This is what he sold when he was hired, and what he's trying to execute is the follow the sun type of a conference,
Right.
somebody that you can pick up and do a big
time
noon,
zones. Yeah.
in Eastern time in the morning, and you can be watching football all the way till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And there is no reason that can't happen. You just have to, look a little further past your own selfish needs, which is what we all tend to do anyway.
Yeah, I suspect that they probably break it out into pods or
Of course, yeah, oh yeah,
and
for sure.
divisions,
Yeah.
and probably you're going to play West Virginia,
Right.
Cincinnati, UCF, and Cincinnati multiple times in a season,
Right.
and one of the other teams outside the division. I'm
Right.
sure that's something, because the travel is going to be brutal, but it's going to be brutal for the Big 12. It's going to be brutal for any conference, with that kind of national.
But it's doable. BYU's been doing it for decades.
Right.
BYU has played all over the country, and they've been, I would say, they've been superior successful in most regards. There have been steps back, but at the end of the day, they have shown it can work. You just have to be very organized.
You feel pretty confident with Colorado, though, correct?
I do. I mean, I'm just, if you read everything, if you take the time to read all the sources, not just one, but you go across the board and you actually look at people that are talking about facts and not rumors or reactions, which is 99% of what you get from Pac-12 country are reactions. They're not proactive. That announcement today came on the heels of the bombshell last night about Colorado's border regions on Friday. I mean, they had to get something out. So what'd they do? They rushed out the Washington state president. Well, oh my gosh, if he wasn't the source as the executive board member for the PAC for John Canzano's article,
Right.
I don't know who is.
Yeah,
so
right.
if you just connect all those dots, you don't have to be a Big 12 homer to put it together that they're reacting to things that other people are acting on. And that's what I've been preaching for months is if Utah waits and Utah waits, they can be left holding the bag. They don't think they will because their brand is strong. And I think their brand is fantastic. Mm-hmm. But if they get overly conservative, there are going to be limited seats on the bus. And I don't know what the final team limit is that's in Yormark's head, but he's going to get there.
Yeah, and I think there's enough teams to get there and enough teams that have the right credentials to get there.
Right. I agree.
So it's going to be a matter of musical chairs at the end of the day. And you're right. Who's going to make the real tough decision, with their board of trustees and board of regents to do this? I don't think we really, not to sound trivial, but we really don't know. It's a crapshoot. It's so close, and it's just like, what is going to be the trigger to get some of these teams to do it? I hadn't thought San Diego State. I definitely saw them targeted to this to the Pac-12, but you have more insight into it. So,
well, look, UConn is a fantastic brand. For one thing, I love the Huskies I'm a UW Husky homer, so yeah, right. I appreciate Huskies anyway. So I'm sort of tilted towards that affinity on its own. But my gosh, your basketball program has been fantastic. I used to watch Big East games on ESPN when I was younger, and boy, those were amazing games, right? And so I want UConn to get the best out of what they have the opportunity for. What I would just caution is that I would tell your fans and your followers that being proactive rather than reactive is going to be better suited for your long-term success, because there's going to be limited seats at that P3, and I think it's P3, 20 teams and three conferences that are going to qualify for the big money. And if you aren't on that list, you're going to be playing in the G5 for their Super Bowl. The world is changing, and if you're not being proactive and you are reactive, you're going to get left out.
Yeah, no, I concur. And to be really honest with you, I believe that if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, then I think draconian things are going to happen. And if you don't have football, then there's only going to be a handful of non-football teams left to compete in basketball.
Right. That's right.
And I think with NIL, the team it'll be a school like Villanova,
Right.
or that has a big endowment, or Marquette, a school like that. But I don't know if UConn can compete in that world. And I think that our basketball franchises ultimately fail. So I think football has to succeed to keep our basketball franchise, which is truly elite, at that level.
Sorry,
does that make sense, by the way?
Of course it does. You're being very clear. Yeah. Do you happen to know what the recruiting budget is for UConn?
Oh, the number?
Yeah.
I will get it back to you, and
that would be great.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is recently the Big 12 posted theirs, and it went anywhere from just under $1 million down to 200,000 or 300,000. And I'm a big believer that the more money you put in recruiting, the better your results, right? And I don't know what BYU's is. It hasn't been published yet. But if they're not tooling up, and I think they are, but if they're not tooling up, my team's going to get left behind. And so that's why I ask. I think that's an important number you guys need to be looking at.
Yeah. So here's an irony. We ended up, I had mentioned at the beginning of the show, we got a kid from Rutgers who was probably the best three-point shooter in the portal. Terrific kid, Cam Spencer. He openly left for NIL money. And he said that Rutgers just didn't have or people have spoken about Rutgers not having the infrastructure in NIL. UConn does.
Okay.
UConn has really good NIL. Whether we have the same money as Miami or Alabama,
right,
I don't know. But I do believe that if people came to Dan Hurley and said, "We want to pay you $9 million," I'm just making up a number that's
right, of course.
Around. If I don't think he's ever going to go to Kentucky. He's a Northeast guy. But if Michigan maybe came to him and said, "We want to give you $9 million," I think the school would have enough to pull it together between, donors and whatnot. But we definitely have NIL money, and people are looking at UConn. So I think we can do it in football too. I know we can do it.
So this is a question from Mr. Monkey again. Does UConn have plans to build a campus stadium?
Boy, it's a thorny issue. The state owns the rentier. They call it the rent, just so you know.
Okay.
So if I use that term,
the
state owns the rent. We have to pay to play. It's a weird accounting thing. So sometimes people look at our deficit and see money going back and forth, but we have to pay them for every single game, and we have to pay for facilities. Whether the state would go for it, I don't know. It's controversial.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I rambled a little bit.
No. I think
it's complicated.
Actually, I think that is a great exhibition of how I've been interacting with your fans. It's been really interesting the last 24 hours since I decided to do this show, because once I started broadcasting it and you and I talked, the reactions from UConn fans have been, to say the least, a little interesting. I don't know how else to put it, because very benign questions returned extreme answers. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, is the reason for that, this extra sensitivity, is that because you guys have sort of been left at the altar in a lot of ways in different positions for the last 2 decades, say?
Yeah, I would say we've been loosely in the football for sure.
Right.
That's and people, I think, are like reticent at times to jump into this. There's a lot of discussion about state money being allocated towards a stadium. They'd have to do a lot of infrastructure work around highways and whatnot to make it happen. Possibly, I like that stuff has been kept pretty quiet. Okay. What I think they will probably do is do a massive upgrade to Rensselaer down in East Hartford.
Okay.
Even though it's 30 minutes away, I think that's probably the way they go, and put their $60 million into making that a world-class facility, college,
Okay.
world-class U.S. college facility.
Okay. Here's another question, and by the way, I love Jim Mora, but Jim Mora can keep his bowl team eligible. Can he have the occasional 9 to 10 win season? Do you see that in the next 5 years?
Yes, absolutely. I
Okay.
mean, if the man was able to go from 0 to 60 that quickly,
Right.
yeah, I do. I mean, the man is at the end. He's sort of at the last 10 years of his career.
Right.
He's humble, but he's learned a lot, and he loves it. He's got a grown family. I think Stores is where he's going to stay, and I think he loves building the culture.
Okay.
I have yet to see anybody speak ill of Jim Mora. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
he literally is godlike to the kids. I kid you not. They talk about him, and you should actually see his interviews. I mean, he's just calm, mellow, humble, a leader. He's a good man. I think he's real strong. I think we're very blessed to get him.
Yeah, I think it's a great hire, and you kind of stole him, I believe. Really quick reminder to everybody: the QR code up in the upper right-hand corner. Scan that with your phone, and become a Coug Connect member. I'm a big believer in NIL, and BYU needs it. So click on that, join. It's only $10 a month, and I know LDS people are cheap, but come on, man, $10. Mike, at the end of the day, where do you see? Oh, I need to mention one other thing. If you want your comment read, there are so many comments now, guys. Super chats are really, unless I just pick them and I'm grazing over them, I'm trying to do my best. But if you want your comment to be read, I'm going to need to see super chats. I hate that. That's the only way I can get your comments highlighted. Anyway, Mike, what is the end all be all? What is the ultimate goal of UConn? Is it a league like the Big 12, or are they like some other schools here closer to us that are dreaming Big 10?
And that's again, it depends on which audience you're talking to. I think there's a huge portion of our group that would love to get in the Big 10. I just don't think that's possible. So I think the Big 12 could become a great home for us. We are sort of basketball centric right now. It does not need to be that in the future. I think we can be a great athletic school. We joined the Big East in 79, 80. And in 85, people hired Jim Calhoun and Gene Auriemma, and the feeling was we want to be competitive. Not anymore. We're elite. We're a championship school. I believe Jim Mora can get us to 9 and 10 win seasons. National championship, I think that's pushing it.
Okay.
I just don't see that happening. Like, we don't have quite the infrastructure that the South has. But can we be a good P5 program, get into high level bowls, compete for top 15? Yeah, I think we can. I think we could become a Kansas State.
And I love that you're look, at the end of the day, there's only one national champion. And in the past 20 years, there's only been a handful of those. They've been a very select few who've won those. So I think the reasonable goal for every school should be, hey, man, let's go out and win our conference, and then let's do what we can to get into the national playoff, right? That has to be the goal. Well, right now, and we're only we're a year away from a 12-team playoff. So at this point, I think everybody's goal should be, let's go top 12. Let's get up there, go 10-2, and get to that big league. So you're telling me that you believe UConn can do that?
I do. I absolutely believe. I think we can be a 9 or 10 win program, playing teams like Iowa State, Kansas State, Colorado. It won't happen tomorrow, but do I believe in 5 years? Absolutely. Because I think there's a championship culture that lives within the walls. I think there's the right leadership. I think there's the right coaching. I think there's a lot of good things in place. And I do believe we're going to have a legislature that's going to say, to get from here to there, it's going to require major investment.
Right.
I think we can be the best team in the Northeast and begin to compete with Penn State. I think we can.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think we can. Excuse me.
Yeah, you're fine.
I think we can. I think we can blow past Boston College and Syracuse.
Yeah, I think that's pretty easy, actually.
I don't think Rutgers is just a weird fit for the Big Ten. Yeah. I think we can compete, and I think we can go for the kind of kids that are leaving our region right now for other schools. I'll just say one thing. Jim Mora has said multiple times that he brings kids in who are P5 kids. They love everything about the school, the culture, the facilities, the campus. They love all of that. But then they get at the last minute a P5 offer and they want to live that dream.
Right.
If we are I say P5, an elite power conference.
Exactly. I like that better. Thank you.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah.
P5 no. You're exactly right. That's right.
But if we're an elite conference and Jim Mora can look them in the eye and say, our NFL days are as good as anybody else's NFL days. You can play here. You have supreme level, elite level coaching.
Right.
And you can get a great education on top of it. We're going to carry you through right up to your professional NFL development. I believe in Jim Mora. Just, Jim Calhoun used to talk about believing in the impossible, and he did. He delivered it out of Storrs, Connecticut, with the worst facilities in America.
Right.
I believe Jim Mora can do something of the same. Storrs is an interesting place.
I like the correlation. That's a great comparison because you need a leader. I mean, haven't we seen that in this realignment? Let's talk about realignment a little bit. By the way, if you want your comment mentioned, please you can contribute and give me a small tip just so I can see your comment. And let's do those super chats because I want to interact with you guys. There's just so many comments. You need to come up with a different way to do that. Anyway, I had a question really quick, Mike.
Yeah.
So Two Masters nailed it on the head. ESPN has to be the core driver for UConn to the Big 12, don't you think?
I don't know. I can't say that the relationship between ESPN and the University of Connecticut has been superior. They were kind of behind the Boston College effort to block us from getting in the ACC originally.
Right.
They were very much a part of it. ESPN has been looking to get out of the state of Connecticut. UConn, the state of Connecticut has had to throw a lot of money at them to maintain their offices in Bristol, Connecticut. I don't know. Would it be a good thing for ESPN to have a local team, power team there? Absolutely. But whether I think it makes a difference or not, I don't know. I think ESPN looks at money.
I think that's interesting because there has been a storyline out in the world that says ESPN would be, one of the major drivers to make this happen, specifically because their proximity and their availability to basically they wouldn't have to travel anywhere to cover an entire university. I think that there's a lot of thought behind that, and people care. So that's where that question comes from. This next question from Patrick. If you haven't noticed, I'm all in on Yormark getting full support here. I think most Big 12 people would say they trust Brett Yormark. How do you guys look at Brett Yormark?
I love the guy. I think he has a vision. I think he's been outspoken about that vision. I think he recognizes that just because other conferences that have tried to split off basketball and football have failed doesn't mean it's going to fail again. If you have a restaurant concept that fails, that doesn't mean you don't jump back into the restaurant business and try something different. There are many ways to skin this cat, excuse the expression. And I do think that he sees an opportunity to leverage the Northeast, the New York City market. He sees a footprint there. I think he's going to do something big with it. I've been telling the people in Connecticut, I said, I think, and the rest of the Big 12 may not want to hear this. I think we could become a crown jewel for them. They have the Midwest. They have the West captured and owned. They do not have it. I mean, we have Florida, West Virginia, and Ohio.
Right.
There's nothing in the Northeast, and there never has been. And I think he sees an opportunity for a school, if it's got the right leadership, the right coaching, the right funding, to do something special. And the guy believes in us. So if he believes in us, I believe in him. That's the way I would put it.
And I think you've put the nail on the head. I think that really sums up the way people look at Connecticut right now is, are they willing to do everything it takes to get there? Because at this point, to be in one of those, what I think are going to be 3 power leagues, to do that, you're going to have to show something special. And so there has to be, a secret sauce that UConn would present for that to be an option. So if you're saying the reason that is because of everything else that comes with it, and you think football will be a come along, then I think that's something you can sell, but it has to be aggressive. Do you agree with that?
Oh, totally. I do. I think UConn is, I keep using this term, they're a championship school. They know how to win championships. They know how to win. People may not agree with that or not. I don't know. But what I have seen is at the very high profile, very high level, with television involved and everything, we find ways to win. We've had coaches, Hall of Fame coaches, that come and stay in Little Stores, Connecticut, and they win championships. It's inside the walls, and I really believe in our AD. I think our AD and our president have a vision for it. We obviously have to get the legislature involved, because I do believe at the end of the day, you got to an open wound or a nerve that was sticking out, and that is, we need a better stadium situation.
Right. I think everybody agrees with you on that.
But I think that I'm sure that if Dave Benedict is sitting in meetings and along with the governor and others, they're saying this needs to be fixed. It's going to be. Otherwise, I just don't think we would go through all this, as they used to say, as the Jews used to say, mishigash. Go through all this kind of stuff to not deliver the investment that it requires.
I think that's really important, and probably it's something that you guys in your messaging really need to put out, right? Let the world know. It was obvious to me today in my communications on Twitter that people really don't understand how much the rest of the country doesn't know about UConn, right? They simply don't understand everything you've described, the background, the history, where you put values. And so that's why there's these questions. And so getting out in front of that, you guys starting your messaging and being aggressive, I think will really help. And engaging with the Big 12, being positive and not negative, and looking at it like this is the truck stop conference, like some people have done. If you as a group are really positive about it, I think you'll get a lot of positive return.
Yeah, I think we need leaders who are going to just drag the fan base sometimes.
Right.
But I do think that if UConn starts to win and we start having great schools like Brigham Young, who's nationally ranked, and Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State coming in, we have you coming into our stadium, we're going to fill that stadium. There's going to become an excitement. We had Oklahoma State come in for the Big 12 Big East Challenge, sold out Gamble. The place was absolutely rocking. This isn't Tulane and Tulsa. This is a big time conference. They're land grant schools or large private schools. We have a lot in common with them. Even if we're East Coast, we have a lot in common with the kinds of schools that are in the Big 12. Just as much as we do with Creighton or Marquette.
Yeah, and again, those schools have been mentioned as basketball only additions. So let's talk about that. That you talk about an open wound, and
Yeah.
something that people are triggered about. That you hit, that's the number one, is bring him in with basketball. Everybody says that. There hasn't been one comment I've seen that hasn't said bring him in as basketball, but then it's ... only, right? So people aren't considering the total opportunity that I think your mark is seeing, and that is the entirety of your athletics department. So are you guys ready to sell the football part?
I sure as hell hope so.
Okay.
No, I would think so. I don't think they bring in Jim Mora. I don't think Dave Benedict stays. I don't think our president does what she's done. I don't think we bring the governor in if that's not the case.
All right. I like to hear it. That's great.
I just have to believe that. I don't think this is like we're going to go out to dinner, but we're going to go out to a cheap buffet place. That I don't see UConn doing that. Like when we put our mind to it, we create championship programs. I definitely believe that this is real, and that the effort's going to be behind it.
I think that's great to hear. This is a comment from Monkey, and he says he's a KU fan, and he sees the possibilities with UConn. Would love a regular KU UConn basketball game. I think everybody would. Could you imagine those games being conference games?
Oh my God, I'm not looking forward to them at all.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, by the way, that KU is one team we have not beaten. You know, we've beaten Duke multiple times. We've beaten North Carolina multiple times. We've beaten Florida. A whole lot of very great Kentucky. We beat Kentucky multiple times in the Final Four along with Duke. Never beaten Kansas. No, I think there's one game that worries me. It's the one we're going up to Allen Fieldhouse in a couple months. No, I think it would be amazing. But you know what? Baylor had an amazing run a couple of years ago.
Well, in Houston, I mean, it's stacked. Kansas State. I mean, the list is ridiculous. Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, Iowa State. It's a gauntlet. And then you add Cincinnati, and BYU is going to struggle. BYU is going to win maybe 4 games the first season, but they're going to tool up. They're going to get better, and this conference is going to be monstrous with basketball. So why not leverage basketball and say the football's coming?
Yeah, I mean, I think the football is going to. You can't expect UConn to join the Big 12 tomorrow and win 9 games. That's not realistic. Do I think it could happen though in 3 years? A couple of recruiting classes, 3 or 4 recruiting classes for Jim Mora. Yeah, I do believe that. I think there's something special there. But I want to flip it around a little bit. You know, you're asking me about can we ramp up our football?
Right.
Can Brigham Young ramp up its basketball? And I'm going to say yes, but you go ahead.
No, I'll let you answer the question. I love hearing other people's things. Go ahead. I want to hear it.
I do. And I think you can get kids from the Northeast too. I mean, I know you're a religious school and there's commitments within the religion and all that within the school, to do missions and whatnot.
Right.
But do I think having the Northeast promoting the Big 12 can help you? No doubt about it. I think you can ramp up. By the way, us joining a conference that good is going to affect our ability to go 30-4.
Sure.
It is. We're going to be one of those SEC teams, in football that's like 12-8 and still get a 4 seed.
Exactly. And that's it right there. That's the key. I mean, that's the idea with Gonzaga as well, right? They've been rumored to the Big 12. I know your mark would like them, but some other things in realignment have to happen before that can go. But you're exactly right. Gonzaga, I think, is a 22-21 win. Mm-hmm. And that's with 8 warm-up games. Right. So you're talking 12-8 would be a great season in the Big 12. And you would be probably a 3 seed.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be like, imagine a sumo wrestling match between KU and UConn, and then 3 days later we're going to Texas Tech,
I know.
and then 5 days later we're going to OSU.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be brutal. There's going to be travel involved. It's not the greatest thing for UConn, and like the Big East is a lot more compact and it's a lot smoother and it's a lot more convenient.
Right. Everybody can drive to where they're going, and I get it. I understand.
But at the end of the day, is it the best thing for these teams to be playing? We're going to be must see ESPN TV. We're going to have whether we have Big Monday or Big Wednesday or Big Friday, whatever it may be. We're going to have big something on Fox or ESPN, and those games are going to be monsters. And you know what? UConn may beat Kansas, but then they're going to lose to Iowa State potentially the next game out, because the emotional challenges of having a schedule like that. But it's great stuff, and it's going to help all of us on the recruiting level.
I 100% agree. And one thing we know is that one success can be all success if everybody's pointed in the same direction. And as we've seen in realignment, when you have a conference that has people that have differing goals, they want to be in different places, each one of them, it's a crazy mess. So are you impressed with the way the Big 12 has been organized and their communications have been unified? And all the additional functions. You mentioned Rucker Park, right? Then there's the football clearinghouse that they're going to do at the end of the season where all the seniors and all the schools, all the players going to the NFL are going to do a combine. I mean, why has nobody ever done that before? And that's something Yormark's brought in. I mean, these are things that are so innovative, they're breaking the sport. So what do you think about the way the Big 12 has been organized?
Brilliantly. I think Yormark is, I mean, like, I don't want to use the word too lightly. Whether a genius, I don't know. The man is a high-level marketing executive who's been in the New York City market and headed up JC's Rock organization, the Rock Entertainment Group.
Right.
He's done massive media groups all around the country. I think the guy understands the business at a very different level. I think his strategy is straight on, brilliant. Yeah, I love the guy. I just look at the way the ACC screwed everything up when it decided to grow.
Right.
Yormark is decided to take on the SEC, but not try to go to their strength.
He went
to the strengths of what the Big 12 is.
That's right.
And I don't think the comparison between the Big East, the way it had football and basketball, and the way the Big 12 is handling it are even remote. I think it's miles different. The man's a smart guy, and I think he probably had my guess is he had his votes long before they sat down at the table. He handled it like a real corporate executive.
Yep.
So like your real voting happens over drinks 2 months before.
He's and this is all my opinion. I hate to say that every time I say something, but people take stuff out of context all the time. But in my opinion, what I'm saying,
that before.
What I've seen with Yormark is that he's visionary. He knew where we would be today. He knew the Pac-12 mess was going to happen back before he even had the job in July. And he knew we were going to be where we are today because there was nothing that the Pac-12 was going to do that was going to they weren't going to debase themselves to sign a contract for only $32 million, right? They would never sign a contract that would do, because they're worth $50 million. We come to find out now that was their goal, is $50 million. It's just ridiculous. So when you think about Yormark and what he's planned, I think he knew exactly where we were going to be today. I don't think this is a guess at all. And I think he spent the last 9 months doing nothing but going to a whiteboard and talking to ESPN and Fox and probably Amazon and said, hey, what can we do? No barriers. Be imaginative. What is the potential that we could have? And he's probably got 38 options, kind of like a draft board where a team has to go through and they have to know who to pick depending on what happens before. That's exactly what Yormark is doing with these media deals. He knows the schools, he knows the when and the how. It's just a matter of he needs the trigger. And I think as you mentioned before, that's going to be Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, he's not playing shoots and ladders.
That's right.
He's not. He is
Yeah.
playing 3D or 4D chess. I really believe that. And if the guy has been as high level and successful and powerful as he's been in his entire career, I think he's been influencing leaders, administrators, board of trustee members for multiple schools for a long time. When he went on campus to UConn like a month ago or whatever it was, he wasn't checking out the student experience. He's already had people, you know, or like what pizza places that are on campus. Like, I don't think he was doing that. I think he was sitting down, looking eye to eye and saying, okay, here are the things we need to do. If I'm going to make this case, this is what you need to commit to me. And I think he probably had his votes, like I said, long before. That's the way we handled it. You know, I was a VP of marketing. That's the way we handled decisions. We didn't do them at the board meeting or the
No, those decisions are made long before. Board meetings are an afterthought. They're just they're pro forma.
The 15-person meeting is total pro forma.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
And the fact that it's remote and people aren't flying in and doing all this intense stuff, it's so laid back. I think the votes were already basically cast, straw vote, and Colorado is going to be the domino. But here's a comment from Eddie, who's a great follower in Texas. I think UConn is in the long run will benefit the Big 12. Kansas football was a bonfire for many years. Nobody denies that, right?
Right. And you know what? UConn, I was going to talk about it, but you kind of got me. You cut to the chase, and that's cool.
I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to do that.
No. You were right to shut me up.
Oh, it's all right.
But I was going to say for the first 10 years, we were successful. We had a really good program, and then we got shuttled off to the AAC. We kind of had no choice. I mean, the Catholic 7 left. I don't blame them.
Right.
But and then we had a bad coaching era. We had bad leadership within the school. Excuse me, UConn leadership. I'm back in those days, but we did. But I think we're past that now, and I think we're in a really good place to be far more successful.
Well, I am a big supporter, and I really think that at the end of the day, what we want is unity, right? And positivity. People are looking for things that are positive because everything online now is negative. And everybody assumes that when you say something, it has to have an agenda behind it, which is really unfortunate. You and I are old enough to know and remember when those times weren't always so. And so it's very difficult to communicate this stuff. So I was giving you the opportunity to sell Connecticut. And I think that's what you've done a pretty good job today. I'm going to do one last call. If anybody has a super chat, they want to get their comment out, please let me know. Put it in there. It'll highlight for me and I'll pull it up. There's just so many I can't pick them. But if you have something you want me to cover, we got just a couple minutes left. I'll do it right now. Let's take the last 7 minutes here, Mike, and you sell UConn to us.
Wow, I'm not sure. I may have already filtered out my brain on told you everything I feel and know.
Well, that's okay then. That's okay.
No, I'm going to say this to your last person who wrote about the Kansas bonfire. We had a bonfire too. We had a bad period. All right. But a bad period doesn't mean forever if you get the right leadership and you have the right culture, you have the right coaches, you have the right state commitment. You got to have a lot of things in place. I think we do. I think Kansas does too. It took Kansas a long while to get its football act. I don't know the internal politics of Kansas, but it took a while.
Right.
But they're there, and it's not impossible. Northwestern had bad years. Vanderbilt's had bad years.
Of
but
course.
That doesn't mean that they haven't come back.
Absolutely.
I would just say this: if you have championship pedigree and you have championship leadership, you can do it. I do believe UConn does. We've done it in every other sport that we put our mind to. There is no reason we can't do it with football.
This is an interesting thing, and I meant to touch on this, but we've covered so much stuff. I really appreciate your time, Mike. This is a comment from Patrick, which I really think is relevant. Big 12 Mexico, UConn versus Texas Tech in Mexico City.
No, I would do Oklahoma State and Texas Tech in Mexico City, and
that's
keep
what
UConn
the joke
out
is.
of it.
that has been one of the jokes is, yeah, who is the school that has to go down and play, right? And it's not, just so everybody knows, it's not Mexico City. It's somewhere farther north. I can't remember which town, but they're going to be playing in a place that's a little more friendly to tourists.
How about if we do Cincinnati and UConn up in Canada? We'll do it up in Toronto.
Hey, I tell you what, Yormark's probably already got that sorted out. He's just waiting for somebody that can get you up there, and you are that school. So I could totally see that happen. Don't make fun of that. That could be tomorrow.
Yeah, well, Brigham Young, we could go out to the northern Canadian Rockies and play a game out there.
I would love that. I would love to play a game in Las Vegas, a feature game where I mean, we sell that stadium out. You guys come down. We're on ESPN #1, and you get, I don't know, 4 million viewers. I think that is something that'll make you feel pretty good.
I just see a question pop up about UConn baseball.
Right.
I'll just say this: we have a potential Hall of Fame coach in Jim Penders. Awesome coach, good guy. We've been in multiple super regionals and regionals like 5-7 years in a row now. I'd love to be in the Big 12 in baseball. I think it would up our recruiting, but we were top 10 this year out of the Northeast. So yeah, I'd love the Northeast. I'd love the Big 12 for baseball. Would love that opportunity.
Check this out. This is breaking news from BR, who's been a loyal listener watcher since I've started, and I really appreciate everybody who's joined today. I wish I could get to all your comments. I love you guys so much, and I really appreciate your interactions on Twitter. Please follow Mike. You'll see his Twitter handle when this comment pops off. But this is a big deal. And I think we need to keep the conversation going. Let's do this last statement. Let's finish on this from Brian Sanderson, who actually, I don't know who he is. I'm going to have to look him up. CBS Sports. Coach Prime and his Colorado Buffs will announce they are joining the Big 12 in the coming hours. BR, will you send that to me in a DM so I can make sure to refer that link out? I'll put that out right after this show is on, because I think it's just a foregone conclusion. But in the coming hours, what do you think?
I think Coach Prime can turn that program into a nationally ranked team faster than UConn can turn into a nationally ranked team.
Right.
I do. I think the guy he's got the magnetism, the leadership, the skills to do it. He's got the gravitas to make it happen.
He might not be there long. He might only be there 2 or 3 years.
And we'll take any kids who are looking to leave Colorado, come to Connecticut. That would help us tremendously.
I think we picked up 2, I think. We got a running back and I think a DB. But yeah, I understand. It's been like a farm system for all the Mountain West.
Yeah, for us, it's a jump. It gets us to the top of the G5 heap, if you'll excuse the expression. But
yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, I know you don't, but I don't care for that.
No, I don't like it at all. Yeah. I think he's going to be awesome. I think it's a brilliant hire. I do. Look where they were.
Yeah.
And if he gets them to a certain place in 3 years and then leaves, sometimes you just got to say, thanks for the ride. We'll take it from here.
I've always felt, and this has been my dream scenario for realignment, which we can schedule another show to do realignment stuff. That wasn't the purpose of this show today. But one of the dreams that I've had for the Big 12 is that the Big 10 won't take Washington and Oregon, but they're like, we're not going to stay here and play for peanuts in the Pac-12. They come and they play for 3 or 4 years in the Big 12 before they move to the Big 10. That wouldn't bother me in the least. And you know why? Because the minute they join, it raises the bar of everybody else. The
You
media
bet.
value goes up for everybody. And then the next time you negotiate, even if they're gone, you're going to negotiate at that higher level. And I think that's what my vision for UConn is, right? You come in, yeah, you're at the bottom. Who the hell cares? Because in 3 or 4 years, if you have a plan, you can be a 9-win team. There is absolutely no reason why you guys couldn't recruit and be that school. I don't see any blockers.
Yeah, I do. I mean, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, the Delaware, Maryland area is a great football recruiting area. If we're a power school, we can recruit in those areas with anyone. I trust in leadership. I trust in Mora. I trust in UConn. I've seen it happen over and over. Thanks for the opportunity. I'd be interested to see people write to me and say, you didn't convince me and here's why. I was
going to call for that, actually. I was going to say, look, I've heard, and we both seen Big 12 and UConn fans. They talked about this, but they talked about it separate. If you have issues with this, take it up with Mike. Send him a message. Let him know why you're still not convinced. Follow him at SSN_UConn and tell him what you're thinking, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. And if the chips fall in the right way, I really think UConn can be it. And Mike, I really appreciate your time. I think this was off the cuff, very quick from last night, and I really appreciate you coming.
Oh man, it was great. I hope I didn't babble on too long. I think we have an opportunity here to do something special, and I'm looking forward to it. And in fact, I actually think our survival sort of depends on it.
Right, I do too.
I don't want to talk about that openly too much, but I do believe it's important to our civilization.
Well, I think UConn people need to understand, if they come in at a half share for 2 or 3 or 4 years, it's not the end of the world. It's only money. What you're really talking about is exposure and being on the big leagues, and that's what the entree is. And I would just humility pie is a tough thing. BYU had to do it. Utah and TCU had to do it. All the big schools that are going into these big conferences, they had to chew on their lip a little bit. But in the end of the day, you just have to look at what the bigger goal is.
Yeah, you got to deliver. Know, you're kind of on the bench right now, and you got to earn your time a little bit.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I want to thank everybody for participating. Mike has been awesome. Thanks for your time. And I want to tell everybody, follow him on Twitter. Get active, and if you just want to cast stones from the cheat sheets, that's fine, but you're really nobody unless you take action. And be supporting your school's NIL, support Coug Connect for BYU, and let's go win.
Take care, Nathan.
You bet. You have a great night, Mike, and we might be talking soon. Appreciate it.
Look forward to it, man.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Peace out. Bye, everybody.